Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Indie Creative Comics Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It is going, dude. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Enjoying the beginnings of fall here on a Monday afternoon.
A Monday afternoon. I can't
Leaves are
believe it's
falling.
almost going to be October.
Soon, and you know what? October kicks off with a bang on Wednesday.
It does.
It's a big milestone. It's a national holiday.
It should be, but it's not. It's just another ordinary day.
But
big
it's one for you. It's a round number, so that's cool.
It is. It's one of those things that's divisible by a number. It's not a prime number, which is I think more epic. I want to be a prime number. That's what I want to be.
That's true.
All right, but before we go off,
Angel Miss Prime.
Angel Miss Prime.
I'll let you know. Almost 10 months in, it's not great. It's not great being this age, but it's all right. You find the good stuff. You're gonna have a good first day.
I want to see what else falls off. All right. Well, in a roundabout way, John's hinting at my half-century birthday. That sounds a lot older than just.
It sounds a whole lot older.
Yeah, but been around it's going to be a half century, so it's fantastic. I just, I think once you pass 30, stuff starts to either grow on your body or you start to lose body parts, and then when you're 40, you're like, what is this? I'm looking forward to what the 50s bring. But you know what, though? Still reading my comics, and I love it. So that's all that matters. All right, kiddies, welcome to another episode of Indie Creative Comics. This is our indie comic review portion of the podcast. This is episode 157. For those of you that may be new or unfamiliar, John and I, we love comics. We love comics since we were wee lads, and continue to love them to this day. We focus primarily on independent, creator-owned, small press, because there's enough of the other stuff out there that people can catch on to, but we're trying to give a spotlight to the people that don't get a lot of the press. So each week we look at the wall, we say, woo, something new. And believe you me, this week I looked at the wall and I knew exactly what John was going to pick up from the wall as I rolled my eyes and walked right past it. But with that, you know what? With that being said, that sort of makes this podcast, I think, even more alluring, is that our tastes are so different. And oftentimes you'll read something that I roll my eyes at, but then when you describe it and read it, I'm like, fuck, I have to go and see if I can read that book now, which is good. I don't think it's happened in the opposite direction, but
no, you read a lot of the stuff that we both grew up with, and that's case in point like today, and that still live on in comics. You read a lot of that stuff, so I don't have to.
Yeah, it's all good. So we don't have a lot of news today, just a couple of quick announcements. So before we get into the reviews, really quickly, we're really excited to let you guys know that the next Indie Creative Spotlight, we have our guest, David Whalen's going to be on from Correct Handed Comics. So look for that in the very near future, because we're going to be having a chat with him. He's writer, illustrator, colorist. I mean, he does it all, publishes and everything. So Correct Handed Comics, I believe, is his company. So it's going to be a really great chat to, talk to someone who has his hands in pretty much everything. Also, just another quick reminder. Project Shadow Breed, the reboot, is definitely going to be going up soon. The pre-launch page is already up. Here's a nifty little QR code. So if you're a little, sassy and tech savvy with it, you can go straight to the link for the Kickstarter pre-launch page. Just sign up so that you can be notified when it launches. Justin and I are really excited about this relaunch for this particular flagship book. We've sat down, revised, and revisited, and I think we've got something really, really cool on our hands, and I think that you guys are going to really like it as well. So take an opportunity, just click on that the QR code, or go to indiecreativecomics.com. There's plenty of information on there too, and it'll take you to the Kickstarter launch page for that. Should be launching sometime in mid to late October. So get on that so that you can get notified. Cool. I think that's all we have for this week as far as news. I mean, we were talking in the back before in regards to DC's imprint of Vertigo is making a comeback, which is pretty cool. If you don't know what Vertigo is, John is going to take 2 seconds to explain it.
Yes. So Vertigo, honestly, in a lot of ways, was a almost DC's direct response to the Image, because Image became creator-owned stuff, and it was definitely superheroes, but with a little bit of a mature bent to it. And DC already had a handful of titles, Sandman, Swamp Thing, Hellblazer, that were sort of veering more into a mature reader's territory. And so they decided to create an imprint, and it became a creator-owned imprint that really skewed more in horror and mature reader stuff. Not all of it was horror. Some of it was sort of hot sci-fi, light sci-fi, hard sci-fi, but a great, showcase for emerging talent, especially a lot of British creators came through, or UK in general, came through Vertigo, and then of course became mainstream superstars as well. And after a while, Vertigo was around for almost 20 years at least, I think. And then it sort of they got rid of that label. They folded those characters. It's funny. So those 3 characters I mentioned earlier started in the DC universe, became completely separate, their own things with Vertigo, and then have now been reintegrated back into the DC universe. And then DC sort of replaced Vertigo with the Black Label, and right. Black Label was telling more stories with using the established DC characters, but putting them in Vertigo type settings. And that's still chugging along, but they have recently decided to bring back Vertigo as an imprint. And it looks like, they have some creators that have already been doing some Vertigo type stuff as Black Label, non-superhero stuff, like James Tynion, the fourth, and some other creators. I guess you said that they've already started to solicit some of this Vertigo stuff.
Ram V, I think, is coming on board to do some stuff for Vertigo. Yeah. Taking a little break from the superhero. I think he has one more Batman book that he's doing, and then he's doing some Vertigo stuff that's non-superhero.
Yeah. So basically, it seems like Black Label will still exist as Vertigo with superheroes, with DC characters, just telling those darker, out of continuity stories that wouldn't fit in the mainline DC universe. And then, so that would be Black Label. Vertigo will be more of like classic Vertigo, fantasy, sci-fi, horror, but definitely doesn't seem to be doing a capes and tights thing. And then, of course, I think Elseworlds is coming back as an imprint, and that's going to be more your alternate reality type stuff, right. Your Victorian Batman, your 1920s Batman, your whatever decade you want to put Batman in that he might not have already existed in. Well, that's pretty much going to be Elseworlds.
And the Black Label, from what I understand, is still stylistic as well, because all the books are perfect bound, aren't they?
A lot of them are what they call Prestige Plus, right? The magazine size, square bound, right?
Square bound, but they're not. I haven't seen any saddle stitched books come out.
Not saddle stitched, but they still do some things in a regular
comic. Still perfect bound, right?
Yeah. So, like, case in point, Peacemaker is a really, really good, really popular show right now, and DC. But it's not really reflective of Peacemaker in the comics. So there's a Peacemaker, Vigilante, and Eagly double feature miniseries they just did that is Black Label branded. That's sort of what that's going on with.
Yeah, so it'll definitely be more mature content. We'll see what's going to happen with Vertigo. We'll see how much leeway there's going to be with like Kratos' own stuff. You won't see too many unknown names in the Vertigo space, but if we find that they are doing creator own, like the Tinian's House series are coming over, so Nice House by the Lake, Nice House by the Sea is coming over to Vertigo. I think there's still in talks to whether or not how much creative control he has over that product. Now, Sandman was owned by Neil Gaiman, right?
So that version of Sandman does get a Neil Gaiman, Sam Keith, and Mike Dringenberg, I believe, all share creator ownership of that character, but it is still a DC property.
Okay.
And it's sort of like if you've ever followed like the Sandman, like Neil wrote the main series, and then there were a lot of spin-offs using other characters that were created for that series that Neil allowed DC to use. And in that same token, DC honored Neil's request to not necessarily have anybody else write that version of Sandman that he created without Neil's blessing. So Grant Morrison and a couple issues of JLA got to use a version of that Sandman. There was also Paul Jenkins, I think, when he was writing Action Comics with David Finch doing the art, was Luthor. It was like Luthor focused. Neil Gaiman allowed them to use his Death character. That is a character I think that he does have creator ownership with over, and really only gets used if he lets them.
Yeah.
Again,
so that's sort of like it's almost like an Arnold Palmer. It's like a half and half deal.
It's like a half and half kind of deal. Yeah. DC has done that. Like, James Robinson, along with Tony Harris, I believe, owns the character of Jack Knight Starman. They don't own all the 17 Starmans that have been just like, Neil Gaiman doesn't own Golden Age Sandman or any other Sandman that DC decides to do after, going forward. But yeah, but James Robinson, gave an ending to that version, that Jack Knight character, and DC has honored that by not bringing that character back with other writers.
Gotcha.
It's neat. They do allow other writers to reference him, which is kind of cool. But yeah, they have not brought him in, as of now. They're, just like with Neil Gaiman, they're honoring the creator's wishes, even though it is technically an IP that they could pull out.
Right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, so there's some good news, because I know a lot of people love that imprint because you could just do things there that you couldn't do with mainstream comics. And DC was like, yeah, you know what? We can't do it in this because we don't want to, muddy the waters over there. That's its own thing. And once they brought Vertigo in, there was a whole, it was not just superhero stuff. There was like a whole genre of different things.
And a good mix of established creators and newer creators, or even established creators, again, across the pond, introducing them to American readers, and just opening a whole nother doorway for them.
Yeah.
So let's hope it keeps up, does the same thing. Yeah.
Look out for those. Maybe it'll last another 10 years and then they'll go to hiatus and then come back. We'll see. It just seems to be like the cycle with those guys.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah. Let's hop right into it. So our next section is the reviews for the week. I think we have about 5 books for you this week. So we're not going to bore you to death, but it was a really good week. So I'm going to try to keep my reviews a little bit down because I'm super excited about the books that I read. So let's start with you first, John, and then we'll go from there.
Okay.
What do you got first?
I'm actually going to go with a book from Image, but their Skybound imprint.
Ooh.
Skinbreaker. Skinbreaker. Talk about creator owned. So Skybound, if you do not know, is the imprint that is curated by Robert Kirkman. So Image is great. They had, like we mentioned last week, they have a lot of great a lot of writer focused imprints, and I really appreciate that they do that. So here is Robert Kirkman, who he's done some things. He's done a few comics.
I've never heard of him.
So this is funny. So I am well versed in who Robert Kirkman is. I really have not read at least the big 3 to his credit, right? So
really, at least
I've never read Walking Dead. I've never read Invincible, and I passed on Void Rivals.
Wow.
Yeah, I know, and I know he's a great writer. I have read other things by him, but I've never got in on those on the ground floor, and just sort of kept moving forward without going back and reading them. Maybe
Battle Pope, right?
Battle Pope was an early Image thing. Yep, that's right. That was great. That I did check out because that was just too insane not to check out. One of the cool things about Kirkman, especially with the 1-2 punch of Walking Dead and Invincible that he had about 25 years ago, he was also writing Marvel Team Up at the time, and Invincible was so popular as when it was coming out as a comic, and this is, again, well before the cartoon show, and his stock was so high that Marvel allowed him to use Invincible in an issue of Marvel Team Up. So there is a Invincible
Nice.
Spider-Man comic out there. He returned to Invincible Universe recently with Battle Beast, which I know you're reading.
Mhm.
And one of the things, the blind bag variant for the first issue of Battle Beast was you would get, I guess, the book, but you get a randomly inserted other comic, and in some cases it was a special one-time only reprint of that Marvel Team Up issue. Yeah, so that's why people were going crazy, I think, for that. Aside from the fact that it was a new Invincible something written by Robert Kirkman. So first and foremost, Robert Kirkman, amazing writer, really nice guy. I have even gotten to meet him briefly a couple of years ago. So this is his newest product with David Finch, who we mentioned earlier, artist. One of the best artists. I mean, this guy is just insane. Yep. And haven't heard from him a lot recently. Yeah. And apparently this is why. So I'm going to get to that because it's really cool. Alongside those two, you have Annalisa Leone as colorist, Russ Wooten as letterer, edited by Sean Makowitz, and logo and publication design by Andres Juarez. So this is just a gorgeous, beautiful book. There's a ton of detail in there, and I'm going to get to that a little bit too, because there's some really cool back matter that kind of explains what's going on here. So awesome. So this is just insane, this work. And this is a completely new world. It is very much, it reminded me a little bit of Bug Wars or Honey, I Shrunk the Barbarians, in the fact that these are, the characters that you're dealing with are humanoid. They look a little more like orcs, so they have like the pointy ears, the exposed fangs, but they are definitely humanoid. And it is a culture with a king and his offspring. But when a king dies, it doesn't quite go as easy as the king dies and the offspring takes over. It's basically a tribal culture where someone can challenge the king. And if that person kills the king, they become the new king.
Nice.
And so there's this whole sort of world building in here, but it's done in such a way that it is very breezy and easy. And your narrative thrust is that the king of this tribe is ailing. His son is primed to take over, and the father keeps pressing him, challenge me, because we need to keep this, amongst ourselves, because some of these other guys, especially, of course, you're Heavy in the piece, who is the one who also wants to challenge to take over. He's kind of a maniac. He's kind of a brute. He's sort of not what the present king nor his son feel is who should take over going forward. And so that's sort of your build up there as far as what's going to happen, as how it's going to play out, at least in the first couple issues. And I don't necessarily want to give away too much, but it's just this fully realized world, densely illustrated, and accessible and easy to understand for being an alien environment, as far as like this class structure and how this all works. There's a whole thing about the king carries a sword called the Skin Breaker. There's a maturity process, a maturation process that happens to the children, where the Skin Breaker is used to help them sort of, for lack of a better word, molt as they get older. So that is like a sort of a true test of your manhood. So it's interesting to see how that plays out, and how the two the two bloodlines, how their thoughts on basically their progeny, and who is greater than the other one, again, without giving away too much. It's really worth checking out. It is, I can't say the word gorgeous enough. I can't say the word entertaining enough about it. A couple things that I really loved. So I mentioned the back matter. So basically Kirkman has a nice little page on the back, kind of talking about the genesis and gestation of this project. And, here's this, here we go again, only bigger and better than ever. This is an 8-issue miniseries. So first and foremost, love it. That's a great number to tell a real sweeping, epic story. Apparently, every page that Finch is drawing is basically on 2 large artboards. Every page is essentially a double page spread as he's drawing it, which means every double page spread is a 4-page spread the way he's drawing it.
Yes.
That's how all those details get crammed in. You lose some of that detail when you shrink this. So they're also, which is a new thing that's been happening with a few books, at least over on the DC end, they're releasing this in an oversized, like larger than Treasury sized edition.
Yes.
So you can really see the details in that artwork and see how it pops. So good on them for doing that. The best thing about this, and this is why we haven't heard from Fitch in the last few years, took him 8 years to do this.
Holy moly.
They didn't solicit this until all 8 issues were in the can. So
Smart.
that's how detailed Fitch was, how diligent and just strapping himself to the table to get this done. It feels like, I mean, it seems like each issue took him about a year to draw, and it shows. This is a guy's not rushing through this. This is a labor of love, certainly from the writer, but definitely from the artist. So Skinbreaker from Image Skybound, it's its own thing. It promises to be 8 issues of funny-looking barbarian goodness.
There you go. Nice. Awesome. Check it out, guys. Skinbreaker from Image Comics. All right, I guess I'm up. So I'm moving on to a little thing called The Dusk. Now I picked it up. You know why I picked it up? Because it's superhero stuff. I'm a superhero guy. The cover was pretty cool. It kind of reminded me of sort of like this Batman animated style, which was pretty cool. So I picked it up for that reason. But also that it was superhero. All right, so creative team really quickly, and then we'll go into it because I think this is also a mini. Writers are Alex Segura and Elizabeth Little. Cover art by David Hahn, illustrated by David Hahn. Colors by Ellie Wright. Letters by Taylor Esposito. So this book is actually under the Chispa imprint, but published through AMP Comics. Now, Chispa is a Latino-founded indie art scene in Los Angeles. It's part of I forgot what it's called. I have it right here. Hang on one second. I think it's Mucho Mas Media imprint, right? Or Mucho Mas Media. So it's underneath them. And it's their tagline is "By Latinos, about Latinos, for everyone," which is pretty cool because we have Milestone Comics, right? Within the imprint of DC, and that deals with African American superheroes and stuff like that. And I think we had Latino characters that I'm trying to think of that are popular as far as like mainstream. The only ones that I could think of are Jessica Cruz, which is Green Lantern. Then you have America Chavez also. But as far as the indie world is concerned, the only one that I could think of was this one that was called, I think, Puerto Ricana or something like that. But she was like a Puerto Rican superhero. But that was done for, I think, a special cause in regards to like raising money for Hurricane Maria and stuff like that. So I don't know if it was an actual comic itself. But when I saw that, I said, holy crap, because I'm reading it and there's Spanish names in it. And when you're reading comics, oftentimes if it's really generic, if it's a generic name or something like that, it doesn't pop out. You're just going to read it as it is. But once you start to get stuff that either has sort of like the enunciation that you have to bring in there, then all of a sudden I'm going, ooh, this is kind of different. So now I'm speaking in my Spanish head the entire time with this book. So the main character is a Latino character, but there isn't any Spanish in the book, which is funny. So I would say it's like I'm Spanish, but I'm not Spanish. I'm like a New York Rican. I can understand some of it, but I can't really speak it. And my accent is nothing like somebody who's born on the island or something like that. So yeah, I try to like create an accent every now and then. It doesn't work. Yeah. So listen, really cool. It's a mini. Basically, you have this guy who's dressed up sort of like this, vigilante character that goes at night. Lives in a neighborhood that has a power section, and he doesn't like to see what's happening to the people that who are low income or in poverty and stuff like that. So he's going out to, at night to defend and protect the people of the town. And what we come to find out is that he didn't know his father. Come to find out that his father was sort of like this eccentric zillionaire and stuff like that. So he inherits all of his money plus the mansion and everything that he has. And guess what he has underneath the mansion?
A cave?
Yes, a cave that has this costume and everything in it. So the story, it's really easy to follow. I mean, even the art inside sort of has sort of like that Batman Beyond-ish kind of like feel, sort of like the Batman animated kind of feel. So really, really good. The colors are great. The writing is great. Really easy to follow. For first issue though, the only thing, and when I leave an issue and it leaves me wanting, but not in a good way, it pisses me off. So I'm going to get the second issue only because I was pissed off, because there was never a mention of how he donned the costume. So we see him in a costume and we're sort of like in the middle of a story, but we don't have an origin. So with it being, I think it's a 4 or 5 issue mini off of this, it's going to be interesting to see how that develops through. So you get a little bit of backstory from the guy who has his daughter, him fighting crime and stuff like that. But we don't even have a protagonist in this. The protagonist, I believe, is himself, like contemplating the things that he's doing and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on with this book. As far as I know, and I did a little bit of research, it was a Kickstarter project that came out as a graphic novel, and now they've broken it up. So this might be one of those things where it was one thing, and then when you break it up into chunks, it's not as clean as if you had that one full thing. However, it was interesting enough that I'm going to come back and get the second issue and see where it goes from there.
Now, first of all, it looks great. It has a great little throwback element to it. I really like it. It looks very like classic comics, like that animated Batman animated Bruce Timm style. Looks really cool for that. And I like, that sort of the legacy hero thing, the son taking over. Again, the Batman Beyond element, the Jaime Reyes Blue Beetle.
And that's just inferring, because we don't even know if his father
actually went out and did
did anything. So now, it's crazy. There's more questions at the end of that book than there are answers for me.
Now, do superheroes exist in this world already, or do at least comic books exist in this world?
Nope.
From what you could tell?
Nope, it's just crime.
Because one of the things, my biggest suspension of disbelief in the superhero comics, and again, I love superhero comics, right, is how they came up with the costume, right? And when I look at that costume, the cool thing about that is that to me, it looks like whoever made that costume, but probably the father, was somebody who had a a steady diet of reading superhero comics. Because that looks like a costume that I would make based on, oh, well, this worked. And, this one guy's got a collar and on the cape. Let's do that. Let's do these sort of Spider-Man goggles, but with like a little lightning bolt. That logo is like, like if I was going to make a logo, I'd be like something perfect for a t-shirt, something easy. Right.
Yes.
So it really has that vibe. And I like that. And I really hope that that's the in-universe reason, because sometimes now, especially when you get to the point of like, you're doing a Spider-Man movie now, right? So like, and they did a good workaround with it. And, Peter makes a costume out of his long johns,
right.
and Tony Stark makes him the Spider-Man costume, extrapolating on the color scheme of his choice. But yet there's no conceivable way in any sort of modern real world, or again, even in the 60s, that some teenager would independently come up with, this, right? Like, and so that is one of my biggest suspension of disbelief things is, like if Bruce Wayne had all that money to be Batman, he would probably create something a lot more terrifying than in what we've seen in 1940 when it's interpreted in live action.
Right.
A really weird cut mask with these stuffed cones, So it's just, that's always my kind of my thing with superhero comics, as far as like, how do you reinterpret that and make it, modern?
But you're limited by your resources,
your
imagination, and what's available at the time.
Mhm.
So in the 1940s, he's not going to have a highly sophisticated suit.
You're absolutely right.
So it's going to be more spandex than anything else.
But if he's doing it now, so case in
Yes.
point, why I think Absolute Batman works but doesn't work is that those cones actually have a practical purpose.
Right.
But yet it's still a ridiculous idea, and it only exists because that's the
Yeah.
shape, the
No,
silhouette
no.
we need.
And the bat symbol on his chest would have to be at least 50 pounds. It's an axe.
But he's 400 pounds. He's a bigger Batman.
No, but if you're running around in that all
Oh
day,
no,
the lactic acid buildup would be ridiculous. There's no way.
The other thing,
you have to suspend. There has to be you have to suspend it because there's no way.
It also, that always gets me too. Really quick tangent before we get out of the next book is when they do this in the CW shows, right? Like they would always reference Spider-Man and the Marvel movies. We saw it recently in the latest episode of Peacemaker, where there's a Spider-Man reference, and you're like, but there's no way. Like, I don't know if there'd ever be a way for Spider-Man to exist in a world where Batman and Superman never came out as comics initially in the late 30s. And it's just, that is just one of those weird things. I know, I get why you're doing those references because it cooks your eye. Oh, hey, I know that thing you're talking about.
Right.
It's like, to a lesser degree, I guess, when Tom Holland Spider-Man talks about that old movie, Empire Strikes Back. So we have a world where Star Wars exists. Right? However, it's a world where Jack Kirby's New Gods doesn't exist because George will never admit it, but George pulled a lot from that comic, So it's always that stuff that always gets me a little bit.
Well, the connection is Disney, right?
Yes, of course.
Is that yes, yeah. Just like watching a DC movie and all they read is DC Comics.
Hey, crazy. You heard this movie mentioned in this movie. Watch this movie.
That's funny. All right, you're next. You're next up. We got what?
We got yes. I'm gonna try and do this because there's a little spinny thing. So this is from IDW Dark, which is IDW's dark horror imprint. IDW, I love you. I hate your new logo. I'm sorry.
It's so weird, right?
It's just weird, but I think it works a little better with the dark intercutting it rather than just like the weird line that they do. I don't know.
You're still missing the W.
You're still kind of missing the. It's there on the. Anyway,
you know what? They were trying to be clever, and it just.
It'll be fixed in a year, I'm sure. Yeah, because otherwise it's just a line.
Yeah, and it's an I and a D.
Yeah, but see that line in the middle makes the
yes, yes, I know. They should have probably made it a different color.
Yeah, that's why I like the dark. Kind of separates a little bit.
Right, but then now it's just ID
dark. All right, that's the review. All right, folks. Now, so this is Twilight Zone issue 1, and this is written by Dan Waters, artist Morgan Beam, lettered and designed by Sandy Tanaka, co-edited by Nicholas Nino and Ellen Boehner. And what I really like is that it does say inspired by the original CBS television series. And so this is very much in the vein of the original Rod Serling black and white Twilight Zone. There have been several reimaginings as a series, I think in the 80s and 90s, more recently with master of horror comedian Jordan Peele doing the Rod Serling riff and actually being, I guess, the Rod Serling type presenter of the recent iteration of the live action Twilight Zone. Mm-hmm. But this is a throwback in almost every way. It is black and white, which I really dig. It really feels like you're watching the old 50s show. It has, the beginning voiceover narration that, is typeset. So that's kind of different. And it does that whole, this guy's about to take a journey into the Twilight Zone thing that's classic on the old show. The only difference is you really don't have Rod Serling quite there as a presence. I feel like this right here, you got a guy sitting behind an umbrella who actually doesn't really show up later on, smoking a cigarette. I think that's supposed to be your Rod Serling there. So I don't know if there's a likeness issue or they just decided to evoke him without actually using him. But that's pretty much what I gleaned from that. I will say, if you know anything about the Twilight Zone, especially when we were kids, there was the Twilight Zone movie in like 81, where something really tragic happened. And I don't know if it's intentional or not, but a helicopter plays a big part in this narrative. So if you know, you know. So I found that a really weird, interesting, odd choice. But basically, without getting too much into the weeds on this, you have a very rich man who goes to this island where he is basically paying for them to come up with the cure for aging. To reverse engineer genetics so that he can be young and immortal. And you know, he insists on being patient zero once they have developed this, because this is what he's paying for. He has all these plans of what he's going to do when he gets back to the mainland once he is youthful. And first thing is telling his son, you know what, you don't have to be a medical doctor anymore. You could just kick back and relax because I have found the cure for aging. And as again, because he is stepping into the Twilight Zone, yes, it works for him, but it has drastic ramifications for everyone else around him. And the decision has to be made whether to stay on the island or actually go and live in a world where he is going to be a catalyst for some severe, horrific, terrifying change. So that is the moral choice that this character has to make. So it is very Twilight Zone. It is very cool. It is a really neat twist. I had a lot of fun reading this. I really did feel like I was watching an old, a lost episode of the show. So Dan Waters and Morgan Beam really captured that without even doing a likeness. The old man who does turn into a young man later on, I could see if you were doing this today. Kyle MacLachlan with some de-aging technology, I think would be great for this character. He's just one of my favorite actors, and I could really see him doing this. Again, that wasn't a likeness thing. That's just my headcanon choice, if you will. Now, what it looks like is that this is going to be a miniseries, or at least they are advertising the first 5 issues. So in true anthology fashion, each issue is a different story. Each issue is a different creator. The first issue is the only one where you have a writer and artist. Looks like 2, 3, 4, and 5 are solo acts. So issue 2 will be done by Tom Scioli. Issue 3, which you might want to check out, as we'll probably get to in a minute, is going to be done by James Stocco. Issue 4 is by Nate Powell, and issue 5 will be by Francesco Francavilla. So yeah, really neat stuff. Twilight Zone.
So is there a story that carries over? Or is it going to be an anthology?
It's going to be just like the show. Each issue is going to be a different story.
Nice.
They do plug the next issue. It looks like it's going to be some hard sci-fi with some guys in some old-timey spacesuits going to some weird alien planet. And then, of course, the Twilight Zone. So yeah, so it looks like a real throwback across the board. So looking forward to seeing a little more of this.
Nice. All right, cool. Wonderful. All right, me turn. All right, I got 2, so I'm going to make this somewhat quickish. So we'll rock and roll. So the next book that we have on the docket is I Have the Power. Dude, I can't, man. And I say it every single time this comes up. But this was the first movie that I ever went to alone, was The Masters of the Universe with Dolph Lundgren. It was epic, man. Whenever it's on, I still just watch it. It's horrible, like it's just horrible, but it's fantastic at the same time. Yeah, I just don't know why they deviated so much from the source material, because source materials was so well. You know what? It was 88, right? 87, because it came out before Batman.
Yeah.
So we're looking at graphics from then. So trying to do Orko, yeah, I can see that. Trying to do Cringer, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you're also dealing with a film company, Canon Films, that was just hemorrhaging money at that point. Superman 4 came out the same year, and that was a movie that got its budget slashed in half, so that money could go to Masters of the Universe. Yeah,
which was the best Superman of all.
Yeah.
All right, so Masters of the Universe, the Sword of Flaws. We've had an abundance of Masters of the Universe books come out probably over the last 5 to 7 years. I think the last one that actually came out was sort of tied into Kevin Smith's Netflix series, the Masters of the Universe. I think Revelations and Revolution or something like that. So we had that for a little bit, which is pretty cool. I liked it. I enjoy it. Whatever they could do to bring in, new stories from the characters. The origin stuff, everything pretty much stays the same. So he's from Eternia and stuff like that. But one of the things that really had me psyched about this was the creative team that they put on it. So it's written by Tim Seeley, one of my favorite artist writers. The last thing I read of his was Local Man, which was really great. It's from Image. It's a really good take on the superhero trope, but it grounds it a little bit, but you still have like these over the top 90s, and it's a great throwback to the 90s kind of style, where you had the flip book of what was going on currently in the book, and then you would have sort of like the flip, so you turn it upside down, and then it was drawn in the 90s style and written sort of like in that 90s style as well, about stuff that happened in the past that adds more texture to the story. If you haven't checked it out, do. It's pretty cool. I think it's over now, right? Because it's been on hiatus for a bit.
I think it did, because I think the last ad that I noticed was like the complete series in like 2 or 3 trades. So
yeah, but it was left on sort of like this cliffhanger where it can come back. So it just might be on hiatus for a little bit, which is fine. I'll pick it up when it comes back on again. Art by Freddie Williams. I mean, he's one of these guys where if you just know his art. We spoke about this, a couple times on the show where, there's certain artists who stand out. They just have a particular style, and that's what makes them stand out. You can definitely tell Freddie Williams II when he's drawing something, and he's mostly covers. I haven't seen him like do a lot of interiors, and he's doing the interiors on this book. So I hope he stays. It's definitely going to be a mini. So I'm hoping he stays in the whole thing. The colors done by Andrew Dahlhaus and letters by AndWorld Design. So you pretty much, if you know Masters of the Universe, you're just getting another story. This one is called The Sword of Flaws, Part 1. So you can kind of picture what's going to be happening here. So we have the Power Sword, which is a sword that the Prince of Eternia holds, Adam, that makes him into He-Man. And so now we're looking at the Sword of Flaws, which is the opposite. We had negative He-Man story not too long ago, and he held on to the sword that was the opposite of the sword of the Power Sword. So what's really cool about this is you've got sort of like, you don't get a lot of background in regards to like an origin story, because we don't need it. Everyone knows who He-Man is. But the first half of this book, it's funny because I thought they were going to like turn, like break the fourth wall, and everyone turn and face the reader and just say what the lesson was of what they just went through, because it just read that way, which is really cool. But the art is just really, really good. And then once you get past that learning portion of the book, then you get to understand what the true story is about. You've got Skeletor in it with Evelyn and Cyclops. Cyclops is actually, or Triclops, is actually playing a larger role, because there's sort of like this connection that he has to what's going to happen towards the end of the book. I'm not going to give it away. But Skeletor is up to his old hijinks of, wanting to get into Grayskull and get the power of Grayskull so he can take over all of Eternia, blah, 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 blah. But these fight scenes with Teela and stuff like that, like every time I think we get a new book with Teela in it, she's getting more badass. Because she was always sort of like that tomboyish, because she was the daughter of, or the stepchild of Man-at-Arms, because that's not his real daughter. Because her mother is the sorceress. Well, I guess it depends on what origin you read and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's that.
Yes, there's so many. But my point is that the iterations of her, she just keeps getting more badass, which is fantastic, and she's no different in this book. She's constantly the Prince Adam's guard. So whenever something comes up and he needs to turn into He-Man, he needs to figure out a way, sort of like Superman does, to get away from everybody so that he can change to where he changed to. There's only a couple of people that know He-Man's secret, which is Man-at-Arms, Orko, obviously Cringer and the Sorceress.
Because apparently everybody in Eternia is blind.
Yes, but here's the deal, right? So I'm reading the book, and you mentioned it already. You have to turn off that portion of your brain that says, "Okay, you know what? This doesn't fucking make sense," and it shouldn't because it's comics. But I'm like, all right, I can get him walking around as Prince Adam, and then turning. I mean, we have Shazam and stuff like that. There's a transformation there.
But it's a little boy turning into a grown man.
Yes. Okay. So there's
Superman
a man
at least wears glasses
man.
as Clark Kent. Prince Adam looks the exact same haircut, voice, build. He just takes his shirt off and pants off, and there he is.
No. That's not it. I can still get past all that because he's wearing pink. So when you look at a guy wearing pink, you go, I don't know.
So, that's a whole other segment of the internet that has a belief about that. Yeah.
But here's the deal. In these pages, hold on. Let me see if I can find one real quick. I know this makes for great radio, especially for those who aren't watching, but just listening. Now, I'm going to show a page where before he turns in, this is him as Prince Adam, right? What's wrong with this picture?
He even has the same sword. He has the sword.
So if you can't figure it out from there, I swear to God, unless the sword is invisible to everyone, which is not mentioned at all, he has the power sword on his back. The same sword that He-Man wields when he's coming around to save the day. All right.
Which again is a convention of the cartoon show. Because I remember buying the first He-Man toy well before the cartoon show, and it had a mini comic, and he was just a barbarian who went on an adventure and got all this stuff, you know. And that by the time when the cartoon came around, I was like, I was already into Conan by that point, you know. I already had like, you know, so yeah, and again, like I turned the He-Man action figure into a Conan action figure when I first got it, but I did like that original version of Barbarian He-Man, or you know,
well, that's what they brought in comic writers to give him a backstory and stuff like that.
And they made him Clark Kent Superman.
Yes,
but like so much easier to tell,
especially with the power sword on his back. Jeez, but all kidding aside, really fun, really easy read. I mean, Tim Seeley, he's just really great. I mean, if you read any of his stuff, you'll really enjoy it. And the art from Freddie and the remaining creative team, they just did a really solid job on this book. So I'm gonna continue with it. I'll definitely finish it off.
Freddie Williams is such a great choice to do these licensed things because he really captures the aesthetic of the nostalgia, but really puts his own flair in it. He did the couple of the Batman Ninja Turtles ones that were existing in the mainline DC continuity and the IDW continuity, but there was still enough of like the animated flair in there as well. So he's a great artist. I love him, and I think
and you could tell when an artist likes the IP that they're working on or whatever project they're working on, and he's one of these guys that you could tell he really likes the Master Universe characters, which is pretty cool. Yeah, pick it up. Master Universe, The Sword of Flaws, Part 1 of 5, I guess, from Dark Horse Comics. All right, last but not least, holy shit, freaking James Stokoe, man. I just want to strangle. If you've not read this book, it is amazing. I can't even tell you. If you like the Shaw Brothers, freaking, old school freaking kung fu movies, this is sort of like a tribute to that. And James Stokoe just being on this book is the only reason why I forgive. There were years, not weeks, not months, but years between the first iteration of this book to now. So script, art, letters, and cover, all by James Stokoe. Dude, if you've not seen this guy, hold on one second. Let me just blow this up because you want to talk about detail. There's just so much line work that he does. It's just absolutely fantastic. All the little things that is up on top and everything that he does. The character expressions, like when he has freaking, look at that. Isn't that just beautiful?
Yeah.
His darks and then just enough color and shade. It's really, really cool stuff. All right, so basically this is the second part of a book that he called The Orphan and the Five Beasts. And basically who you have is sort of like this orphan. Her name is Mo. She lost her parents when she was young. Kind of like recapping the first part of the series. If you're gonna pick this up, that's the only thing about picking this book up, is that you'd kind of be lost if you don't know what happened in the first part. There's some reference to it, but not enough to say, oh, I know what they're talking about, kind of thing. So you would probably have to read the first 4 issues. And that's what bothered me too, because I think it was listed as a 5 issue, but it was 4 issues. So this continues that 4 issue run in the very beginning. And basically Orphan Mo was brought up by her master, who taught her martial arts and all this stuff, was killed by one of what they call the 5 beasts. There's these super humanoid characters that terrorize villages and surrounding areas, but they're constantly moving around as well. So the first 4 issues, you have Mo hunting down the 5 beasts. She gets to the first 2. Now, one of them is called Thunder Thighs. So you could just imagine the size of the size. What was crazy, I mean, like, this book just goes to places which is crazy insane. So if you ever seen a Shaw Brothers movie, you could, like, the fighting sequence that they have, you can't do that in real life. So this guy Thunder Thighs actually took a horse in between his thighs and exploded the horse, just like you would squeeze like a watermelon to like pop it out. It was insane, like the stuff that just happened in that first book. But yeah, so it's pretty much Orphan Mo on her journey to get revenge for the master that was killed by the 5 beasts. And in the first 2, we get to see the first 2 beasts and how that interaction happened. And now we get introduced to a new beast, but we also kind of get a foreshadowing of things that happened in the past that may be coming back to haunt her as well. But then at the end of that first series, she sort of picked up like these guys that were these bandits who like tag along with her as well on her journey now. And they pretty much just drink sake and get drunk and they make believe to fight and stuff like that. But then she's also picking up someone else who's like sort of I wouldn't call him a police officer, but sort of like somebody who's hunting the beast down as well. So you get to, it just moves that story along. If you didn't read the first part of this, still want to pick this up just because of the art or whatever it is, do it. I would get the first part of this, read it. It's a really quick read. You'd be fascinated with the art that's in there. I'm pretty sure it took his time because this is probably done. And just like David Finch, it took him whatever amount of years just to fit, because this is a 4 issue as well. So this is what's going to happen, and I'm already preparing myself for it. There's 3 more beasts. I'm seeing on my head 2 more beasts are going to be dealt with in this book, and then we're going to wait another 2 or 3 years, and then we'll get the final. So I'll be super surprised if he finishes it off in this 4 issue run. But yeah, Orphan and the 5 Beasts Bath of Blood is what this is called. This is from Dark Horror Comics. I can't say enough positive stuff about what James Stoker does. Don't like that he teases and then goes away for years and then comes back, but he's forgiven because god damn, it's that good.
I love his artwork. It's I love that it's sort of like the Japanese brushwork type of with modern storytelling sensibilities. Also, he's got a real density and lushness to it, like a Richard Corbin, where it's almost like you can feel you can reach in and like touch those trees, and you know, everything just really has a nice depth to it. The shading and light and shadow that he does is fantastic. But yeah, I would say I don't know. I can't remember if it was solicited as a 5 issue or a 4 issue, but just by having the word 5 in the title confused a lot of people. A lot of customers were always like, when's the 5th issue coming out? Oh wait, no, it does say the end after 4, but it said 5, you know. And so my word of advice to anybody who wants to use a number in your title of your comic and you are releasing it serialized as issues, do us all a favor, and if you're going to use a number like 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 in your title, make that the number of issues that you're putting out. If it says 8 in title, make it an 8 issue. You will avoid a lot of confusion.
Yeah, it's too much for us to think about. There was a comic back in the 90s called Weapon Zero. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that comic actually started at issue 5.
Yes, and
because it said
backwards.
T-5 and then 4, then 3. So people were trying to read it from 1 to 5 when it was already done, and they were completely lost. I thought it was clever, it was ingenious, but when you're used to reading comic books 1 and up and not backwards, it throws everybody off.
DC did that around the same time, I think probably because of Weapon Zero for their 0 Hour crossover. Oh, and that was issue 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That was the release order. That's how you read them. And I remember I lent them out to somebody, and I meticulously made sure that I put them in the bag in the way they should be read. And him not knowing, says, "Oh, well, I guess I started 0 and read the 0 Hour miniseries backwards, 0 to 5." And he goes, "I don't know, man. It just felt like he was telling the story backwards." I was like, "Did you start with 0?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "Nah, you just reread the end first."
Yeah.
He goes, "Oh, it makes more sense now." And that friend went on to make the movie Memento. That was crazy.
Oh, there you go. That makes. I would have said that makes all sense in the world. But I think even on the Weapon Zero book, it would tell you that even though this was T-5, this was the first issue.
Oh yeah.
It was somewhere on there. It was so weird. It was funny, but yeah.
I think 0 Hour issue 5 said it begins here.
Yes.
Oh, and really? He looked at that and said, "Nope, that's the last issue because it says 5."
All right, kiddos. You got some great stuff, some great selections this week. The Dusk from Amp Comics, Masters of the Universe. Got another story out with Dark Horse Comics. Orphan and the Five Beasts from Dark Horse as well. Twilight was from Image.
Twilight Zone
was from IDW Dark. Yep. And then Skin Breaker from the wonderful Kirkman and Finch.
Skybound
and Image imprint.
That also has a magic sword.
It does? Oh, yeah, the Skin Breaker.
Guys in loincloths and magic swords. That's the theme of the week.
Definitely visit your local comic book store. Check them out. There was other things that came out as well. I'm excited. I think there's some really cool stuff coming out for next week as well. I kept putting stuff in my cart, and I was like, yo, I'm not going to have time to read all of this stuff. So I had to be really selective. So I'm really excited about the books that are coming out for next week as well. That brings us to the end of the show. Remember, in that upper left-hand corner is the QR code to the Kickstarter launch page for our Project Shadowbreed relaunch, which we're really excited about. So make sure you visit the page. Just sign up for notifications as to when that project goes live. If you like what you hear, subscribe to the podcast. Tell everybody about it. We'd love to see you guys here every week, just bringing you our 2 cents on what we read and the people that we have on, sharing their story, their creations as well. If you want to be on the podcast, you're a creator, want to talk about yourself and or a project that you have coming up, just visit indiecreatorcomics.com. Click on the podcast form tab, fill it out, and we'll get you on. Last but not least, support your local comic book shops, because without them, we would not get the material that we love to talk to you about. John, where do you get your books from?
Well, I get my comics at the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. And yes, while local comic shop day may have passed, doesn't mean you still can't patronize your local comic shop every week. Remember, new release day is Wednesday. If you got a shop selling them before Wednesday, buy them, but then rat them out because they're breaking street date. But at the Joker's Child, you will be able to find all these comics and more, including more comics of guys with magic swords and loincloths, and guys in capes with collars, and guys in Spider-Man looking goggles. We got all the comics. We got all the toys. We got all the statues. We even got Magic and Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh cards too. So come on down to the Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. If you can't make it there, well, then check out your local comic shop. Look them up on the internet. They'll find it for you.
Yes, you said loins. All right, kiddies. Until next time, remember, read Indie Made and support creators.